The silent battle sergeant Cole was alone on the battlefield, the quiet after the chaos almost deafening. His mission had been a disaster from the start, and now, with the smoke clearing, all he could hear were the distant sounds of his fellow soldiers' retreat. He wiped the sweat from his brow, scanning the horizon for any sign of life, human or otherwise. But all he saw was destruction. The once thriving planet now lay in ruins, a forgotten battlefield in the war between humans and the alien invaders. Cole had fought in many battles, but this one felt different. It wasn't just the size of the enemy forces or the advanced weapons they wielded. No, it was something deeper, something he couldn't quite place. There was a weight in the air, an eerie silence that had fallen over the place, broken only by the sound of his own breathing. He stumbled forward, his boots crunching over the charred remains of what had once been an alien outpost. The fight was over, but something told him there was more to come. As he moved, he kept his rifle close, ready for anything. That's when he saw a tan alien warrior, barely breathing, lying motionless on the ground. The creature was unlike anything Cole had seen before. It was massive, its body covered in thick, dark armor. Its face was terrifying, with sharp features and eyes that seemed to glow with a strange, otherworldly light. But what caught Cole's attention was the way it lay there, struggling for breath. Its limbs twisted at odd angles. The alien warrior was paralyzed, unable to move, and yet still very much alive. Cole hesitated for a moment. His training told him to leave the alien behind, to focus on his mission, but something inside him urged him to stop. He took a step closer, his heart racing in his chest. The alien's eyes flickered, its glowing pupils locking with his. For a moment, it was as if the entire world stood still. Should I help it? Cole thought, his mind racing. He knew the rules human soldiers didn't save alien warriors, especially not after the battles they had fought. These creatures were enemies. They had invaded Earth, killed countless people, and wreaked havoc on their world. But this one, lying in front of him, was different. It wasn't attacking. It wasn't even moving. It was just ... suffering. Cole looked around, making sure he was alone. The last thing he wanted was for someone to catch him helping an alien warrior. But the creature's condition was clear. It wouldn't survive much longer without help. His instincts kicked in, the same instincts that had kept him alive through countless wars. He knelt down beside the warrior, his fingers brushing the cold metallic surface of its armor. The alien's breathing was shallow, its chest rising and falling slowly as if every breath was a struggle. Cole could see the pain in its eyes, a look that told him this warrior wasn't the monster he had been trained to believe. This was a creature in need, just like any other living being. "What's your story, huh?" Cole muttered to himself, his voice barely a whisper. The alien's eyes flickered again, its lips parting slightly as if it was trying to say something, but no sound came. It was as if the alien was too weak to speak, its body failing it. Cole swallowed hard. He had no idea what he was doing, but he couldn't just leave it to die. He wasn't like the others. He had been raised to value life, all life, no matter the species. He couldn't leave an enemy to perish, not when it was so helpless. The soldier placed his hand on the warrior's chest, feeling the rapid thud of its heartbeat beneath the armor. He thought about the countless battles he had fought, the alien soldiers he had killed, and the families who had lost everything. But in that moment, none of that mattered. The warrior before him wasn't his enemy. It was just a being who had been caught in the middle of a war that neither of them had started. "I'm going to help you," Cole said, more to himself than to the alien. "Just stay with me." He didn't know how he was going to do it. The alien's injuries were severe, and its body was too large for him to move easily. But he had to try. He had to believe that there was more to life than just fighting and killing. This was his chance to make a difference. even if it was only for one alien warrior. Cole's hands worked quickly as he checked the warrior's wounds. The creature's body was covered in deep gashes and bruises, the result of the brutal battle that had just taken place. But there was something else, something that sent a chill down Cole's spine. The alien's wounds weren't just physical. They seemed to be affecting its energy, its life force. He had heard rumors of alien warriors who could manipulate energy, warriors who could heal themselves in battle. But this one was different. It was alive, but barely. And Cole knew he had to act fast. He carefully began to apply what little medical knowledge he had, hoping to stop the bleeding and stabilize the alien long enough to get it to safety. But as he worked, a feeling of unease washed over him. He couldn't shake the feeling that this was no ordinary alien warrior. And whatever lay ahead, he was about to be pulled into something much bigger than just a battle. As Cole continued his work, the alien's breathing steadied. The faint glow in its eyes began to pulse more steadily, and for the first time, the warrior seemed to relax. Maybe, just maybe, Cole had made the right decision. But he couldn't let his guard down. He knew that saving this creature could mean everything, or it could be the biggest mistake of his life. The silence of the battlefield remained. But the weight of the moment was heavy. Cole had made his choice, and now there was no turning back. The real battle was just beginning. The unlikely decision. Sergeant Cole stood over the alien warrior, still stunned by the quiet that surrounded them both. The battlefield had fallen silent, and the air seemed thick with the weight of the decision he had just made. No one could see him here. No one could know he was helping an enemy soldier. One who had once been a part of the force that had ruthlessly invaded Earth. But in this moment, none of that mattered. The alien, once terrifying and seemingly invincible, lay before him, weak and helpless. It was strange how quickly things could change in war. Yesterday, Cole would have shot it without hesitation. Today, he knelt beside it, desperate to keep it alive. He glanced down at the warrior's face, its features sharp and almost reptilian, with glowing eyes that flickered as if the life force inside was slowly draining away. For a moment, he felt something in the alien's gaze, something not unlike the fear he had seen in the eyes of his own soldiers. It was a shared vulnerability, a soldier caught in the storm of a conflict neither wanted. Cole had never been one to follow orders without question. He had seen too many lives lost over petty reasons, battles fought for reasons no one truly understood. But saving an alien soldier, an enemy, was different. His heart pounded in his chest as he questioned himself. Was this the right choice? "Stay with me, okay?" Cole whispered, his hands working quickly as he tore a piece of cloth from his jacket and pressed it to one of the alien's most serious wounds. The creature's chest heaved, its breathing shallow but steady. For a moment, Cole allowed himself to wonder if he was just wasting his time. Maybe it was a trick. Maybe the alien was just waiting for an opportunity to kill him. But as he worked, he noticed something he hadn't expected. The warrior wasn't trying to fight back. It wasn't reaching for its weapon or showing any signs of aggression. It wasn't even making any demands. The creature's eyes flickered again, and in that moment, Cole saw something in them, a glimmer of trust. Or maybe it was desperation. Either way, it didn't matter. Cole wasn't going to let this alien die if he could help it. But the situation wasn't easy. The warrior was much larger than him, its armor thick and reinforced. Moving it was impossible on his own, and Cole knew that leaving it here to die was the simplest solution. The military command would be furious if they knew he was wasting precious time on an enemy. Yet, here he was, making a choice that defied all logic. Cole took a deep breath. "I'm not leaving you," he muttered. The alien's glowing eyes seemed to soften, almost as if it understood. It was a look that sent shivers down Cole's spine, a look that spoke of shared experience, two soldiers from different worlds, caught in the same storm. With a grunt, Cole heaved the alien onto his back, his muscles straining under the weight. He moved slowly, painfully aware of how vulnerable he was. The alien was much heavier than he had anticipated, and every step was a reminder of the risk he was taking. What would the others think? What would the higher-ups say when they found out he was risking everything to help a creature they considered? The enemy? His career? His reputation? He could lose it all for this one act of mercy. But as he trudged through the remnants of the alien outpost, Cole pushed those thoughts aside. He couldn't afford to think about that now. He couldn't afford to hesitate. As they reached a small makeshift shelter he had set up earlier, Cole finally lowered the alien onto a bedroll. Sweat trickled down his forehead, and his arms ached from the strain. He collapsed beside it, breathing heavily, his mind racing with questions. The alien's chest rose and fell, its breathing more even now. For a brief moment, the weight of the situation lifted. Cole felt a strange sense of relief, but it was short-lived. He still had no idea how to keep the alien alive, or what to do next. There was so much more at stake than just saving this one. "Warrior," his radio crackled to life, pulling him from his thoughts. "Cole, do you copy?" It was Captain Harris, his commanding officer. The voice on the other end was full of urgency, but Cole could hear the edge of suspicion in it. "Yeah, I copy," Cole replied, his voice steady, but his heart pounded faster. "What's the situation, sir?" "Where the hell are you, soldier?" Harris snapped. "We've got enemy forces regrouping, and we need everyone back at base now." "What's going on?" Cole's eyes flicked to the alien lying motionless beside him. He didn't have much time. "I've got a situation here," Cole said, his voice calm but firm. "I need a few more minutes before I can make my way back." "Cole, you better not be." Harris's voice cut off with a sharp intake of breath. "What the hell do you mean, situation? Are you telling me you're not coming back because you're dealing with an alien?" The silence on the other end of the radio was heavy. Cole knew Harris was processing what he had just heard. "Yes, sir," Cole answered, keeping his tone even. "I've got a wounded warrior here. I'm helping him." The silence stretched on, thick with disbelief. "You better have a damn good explanation when you get back here, Cole. You're on your own for this one, understand?" Cole didn't respond. He couldn't. He had already made his decision. The choice to help this alien warrior was his own. It didn't matter what anyone else thought. This was his fight, and in this moment, it was the right one. As the radio clicked off, Cole sat down beside the alien, his hands still shaking from the strain. He looked at the creature once more, and for the first time, he saw it differently, not as an enemy, but as something more. Something desperate. Something that needed help. The weight of his choice pressed down on him, but he wasn't backing out. He had made his decision. And now, he would see it through to the end. The hidden truth the days that followed were a blur for Sergeant Cole. The small shelter, hidden in the remains of the alien outpost, became their sanctuary. His every waking moment was consumed with caring for the alien warrior, Zilar, who, despite his injuries, was slowly regaining some of his strength. There was a strange bond forming between them. A bond forged not in trust, but in necessity. Zilar, once an imposing force on the battlefield, now lay helpless on the ground, his body healing at a slow pace. His eyes, though still glowing with an eerie light, had softened in a way that Cole never expected. The warrior no longer tried to fight Cole's presence or resist the care he provided. Instead, Zilar would watch him quietly. Observing with a strange intensity, Cole had no idea what kind of creature Zilar was, nor why he had chosen to spare him. He had been trained to kill aliens, not to understand them. But as the days dragged on, he began to realize that Zilar was far more complex than any enemy he had ever encountered. There was a depth to him, a a story hidden beneath the layers of armor and hostility. One evening, as Cole sat by the small campfire, cleaning his weapons, he heard the aliens stir behind him. At first, he thought it was just the wind rustling the remains of the fallen structure. But then he heard a voice. It was faint, weak, and unlike anything Cole had heard before. Remember. Cole's head snapped up, his heart racing. It wasn't just a sound. It was a voice in his head. Zeller was speaking to him, not through words, but through his thoughts. The communication was strange and unfamiliar, but it was undeniable. He was hearing the alien's voice clearer than ever. Zillar, Cole muttered, his voice shaking with confusion. Is that you? There was a pause, and then the voice returned, a soft whisper. I remember my people. We are not what you think. Cole's brow furrowed. This was not what he expected. He had thought Zylar was just another soldier in a race of ruthless invaders. But now, this alien who had been left for dead was offering something Mara glimpsed into his past, his culture, his soul. I don't understand, Cole whispered, his voice barely above a breath. What do you mean? Zeeler's voice was filled with sorrow, a deep, unsettling sorrow that Cole had not expected from an enemy. We are soldiers, yes, but we are not the monsters your people believe us to be. We were once, he paused, as if searching for the right words. We were once a civilization, peaceful and wise. But war changed us. It turned us into killers, into predators. Cole's chest tightened as he listened. He had always been taught to view aliens as enemies, as invaders who had no respect for life. But now, with Ziller's words echoing in his mind, the line between good and evil seemed blurred. Our planet was dying, Ziller continued. We were desperate for survival, and that is when we turned to the stars. We found your planet. We saw the strength of your people, your resilience, and we believed you would be the key to saving us. But, instead, we were met with resistance. Your governments turned their backs on us. We had no choice but to fight. Cole's mind raced. He had always thought the war was black and white. The aliens were invaders, and humans were the defenders. But Zeeler's words painted a different picture, one that made him question everything he had ever known. I was one of many. Zeeler's voice whispered again. One of the warriors sent to conquer. But I never wanted this. Oh, I did not want to see my people fall to this madness. The silence between them stretched for a moment, thick with the weight of Ziller's confession. Cole felt a deep sense of unease settle in his chest. He had never expected to hear words like these from an alien warrior. He had expected anger, hatred, even fear, but not regret. I didn't know, Cole murmured, his voice thick with realization. I didn't know it was like that. Ziller's thoughts were distant, as though the warrior was reliving something painful. Now, I am the last of my kind. My people have been destroyed by the very war we started. We are hunted now, but I want to change things. I want to help you. Cole's eyes widened. He had expected this alien to want revenge, to want to continue the fight. But Ziller's words were different. He wasn't asking for forgiveness. He wasn't pleading for peace. Instead, he was offering something far more valuable: an alliance. You want to help us? Cole's voice cracked. After everything your people did, I want to end it, Ziller replied. The war, the killing, all of it. But I need your help, Sergeant Cole. You are the one who can stop it. Cole felt his heart race in his chest. He didn't know what to think. Here he was, sitting beside an enemy, a creature he had been trained to kill, and yet he was hearing an offer of peace, of redemption. The alien warrior who had been his enemy was now asking for his help. The lines between them had been completely erased. I don't know if I can trust you, Cole admitted, his voice low. After everything, all the destruction your people caused. Ziller's voice softened. I understand your doubt, but I promise you, Sergeant, I would never ask for your trust if I did not believe in it myself. Cole sat in silence, his mind a whirlwind of conflicting thoughts. Everything he had been taught told him to kill the alien, to end the war. But here was Zelar, offering a way to stop it. He could feel the weight of the decision pressing down on him, a choice that would shape the future of two species. As he looked down at Zelar, the alien warrior who had once been his enemy, Cole realized that perhaps the true battle was not fought with weapons, but with choices. And this was the hardest choice he had ever faced. All right, Cole said, his voice steady now. We'll do it. We'll end this. Ziller's glowing eyes flickered with something close to gratitude. Then we begin. Together. And so, there. Unlikely partnership began, not with the clash of weapons, but with the shared hope that together they could change the future. The hidden enemy Sergeant Cole had never felt more alone in the vast, desolate landscape. Despite the growing bond with Zelar, the alien warrior who now relied on him, the danger of their situation was clear. They were far from any safe zone, trapped in an abandoned military outpost with no way of contacting their team. Every night, Cole stayed alert, listening for the sounds of approaching enemy forces. But each day, as he and Zelir ventured farther into the unknown, a deeper unease began to grow. Cole couldn't shake the feeling that they were being hunted. Zelir had grown stronger in the past few days, though still far from his former self. His movements were slower, his energy limited, but there was a quiet intensity to the way he observed their surroundings. Cole couldn't help but notice the way the alien's eyes would dart to shadows. The flicker of recognition in his gaze whenever they passed a particular terrain feature, or the sudden alertness that would arise at the faintest sound. It wasn't until the morning of their fourth day in the outpost that Cole began to truly understand why. They had just crossed into a dense, dark forest, a place that seemed to hum with an unnatural quiet. The trees stretched high, their limbs twisted and gnarled, as though they had been growing in this strange place for centuries. The ground beneath their feet was soft and spongy, and the air was thick with the scent of damp earth and decay. Stay close, Cole murmured, his hand resting on the rifle slung across his shoulder. We don't know what's out here. Zelar didn't respond, but Cole could feel the tension radiating from him. The warrior's senses were sharper than his own, and it was clear that Zelar was already aware of something that Cole couldn't yet detect. Without warning, Zelar stopped, his head tilting slightly to the side. The alien's body went rigid as his eyes scanned the trees around them, his muscles coiling like a predator about to strike. Cole instinctively stopped too, his hand gripping the rifle tighter. Something was wrong. Then, in the distance, Cole heard a faint rustling. He didn't need to see it to know that something was coming, something big. And it wasn't friendly. Ziller's voice, low and strained, broke the silence. We are not alone. Before Cole could react, the first of the enemy soldiers emerged from the trees, moving with the quiet precision of trained hunters. They were not human. These soldiers were part of the same force that had attacked Earth, but they were different from the mindless aliens that had invaded before. They were more methodical, more precise. Their skin was pale, almost translucent, and their eyes glowed a sickly green, betraying their unnatural origins. They were the Scourgers, a ruthless alien faction that had been hunting Ziller's kind. For years, they were an elite force, a group of assassins trained to eliminate any who stood in their way. Cole instinctively raised his rifle, his heart pounding. He had faced plenty of enemies in his time, but nothing like this. These creatures were faster, deadlier, and far more cunning than any human soldier. They moved in perfect synchronization, as if they were part of a single collective mind. Their weapons, sleek and deadly, hummed with an eerie energy. Zillar stepped forward, his posture defensive. "They are the ones who hunted us, the ones who wiped my people from the stars." Cole could feel the weight of those words, the deep sorrow in Zillar's voice. These weren't just soldiers, they were the executioners of an entire race. The ones responsible for the destruction of Zillar's people. And now, they had come for him. The first Scourger lunged at them with terrifying speed. Its weapon aimed straight at Zillar, but Cole was faster. With a sharp movement, he fired his rifle, the shot hitting the enemy square in the chest. The crumpled to the ground, but before it hit the dirt, another was already on the move, flanking them from the right. "We need to move," Cole shouted, grabbing Zillar by the arm. Now, Zillar hesitated, his eyes locked on the advancing Scourgers. But Cole's grip was firm. They couldn't afford to waste time. The rest of the enemy soldiers were closing in fast, and they were outnumbered. The only choice was to fight their way out, as Cole and Zillar sprinted through the dense forest. The sound of pursuit grew louder. Behind them, the Scourgers were relentless, their advanced technology making them nearly impossible to shake. But Cole had something they didn't: human resolve. He knew how to survive, how to push through, even when the odds were against him. "We need to get to higher ground," Zillar said, his voice tight with effort. Cole nodded, spotting a ridge ahead that would give them the advantage. With a quick glance over his shoulder, he saw the Scourgers gaining on them. Closing the gap with terrifying speed, they reached the ridge just as the first of the Scourgers caught up. Zillar turned to face them, his hands moving quickly as he activated a small device from his armor. A brilliant blue light shot out, blinding the Scourgers and giving them a brief moment to regroup. Cole took the opportunity to take cover behind a large boulder. He fired at the nearest Scourger, the shot hitting its shoulder. It barely flinched, its armor absorbing the impact. Zillar was not far behind, using his alien strength and agility to take down one of the Scourgers in a single, brutal motion. But they were still outnumbered. The enemy's numbers seemed endless, and with each passing second, Cole's hope of escaping grew smaller. Zillar's voice rang out, filled with anger. "This is not the end." With a fierce roar, he lunged forward, using the last of his strength to strike down one of the Scourgers. But the remaining soldiers were already regrouping. Their weapons crackled with energy, and Cole knew they had mere moments before they were overwhelmed. "Hold them off," Cole shouted, pulling out a grenade. He tossed it toward the group of advancing Scourgers, the explosion sending shockwaves through the air. For a brief moment, there was silence. Then, with a deep breath, Cole turned to Zillar, their eyes meeting in understanding. They were in this together. Whatever happened next, they would face it as one. But as the smoke cleared and the Scourgers reappeared, the real battle was just beginning. The enemy's true power had not yet been revealed, and Cole and Zillar would have to fight with everything they had just to survive the night. The stakes had never been higher. "We will not fall," Zillar said, determination in his voice. And Cole, with nothing left to lose, could only agree. Unraveling the truth, the silence between them was unnerving, stretching on for what felt like hours. The night had fallen quickly, the dark sky above them blanketed with stars that seemed to watch, indifferent to the battle unfolding below. "Sergeant." Cole and Zillar, still battered from the attack earlier, found a momentary respite in a cave that overlooked a barren valley. The last of the Scourgers had retreated least for now, but the threat still loomed large in Cole's mind. Zillar sat across from him, his glowing eyes dimmed, his breathing slow but steady. The warrior had been through more than Cole had ever imagined, more than he cared to think about. The alien's body was slowly healing, but it was clear that the mental and emotional toll was just as heavy. It was in the way Zillar's eyes would occasionally flash with a sorrowful light, as though something long buried was clawing its way to the surface. The fire between them crackled, casting shadows on the cave walls. Cole stared into it, his mind racing with questions. The alien warrior had said something in passing earlier, something that had struck him deeply. "I need your help, Sergeant Cole. You are the key to stopping this." Cole had never thought of himself as anything special. He was just a soldier, one of many who fought in a war they didn't understand. But hearing those words coming from Ziller made him realize that maybe there was more at play here than just a simple fight for survival. "Ziller," Cole said, breaking the silence. His voice was calm, but his heart pounded. "I need to understand. Why are we doing this? Why do you want to stop the war?" Ziller didn't answer immediately. Instead, he closed his eyes, and for a moment, Cole thought he was going to remain silent. But when he spoke, his voice was thick with emotion, as if the words had been buried deep for far too long. "We were once a great civilization," Ziller began, his voice low. "Before we became the hunters, we were the hunted. We had knowledge, wisdom, a way of living that allowed us to thrive without fear. But all of that changed when we turned our eyes to the stars." Cole listened intently, his brow furrowing in confusion. "You mean before the war? Before you invaded Earth?" Still nodded, his gaze distant, as though the memories were too painful to recall. "We thought the stars held the answers to our survival. We thought we could expand, evolve, learn. But instead, we found more enemies, more predators. We were not the first to look for life beyond our world, but we were the first to pay the price." Cole shifted, leaning forward. His curiosity was piqued, but there was still so much he didn't understand. "So, your people came to Earth, not to conquer, but to survive." Ziller's eyes met his, a flicker of recognition in them. "Yes, we did not come to invade. We came because we had no choice. Our planet was dying, and we were desperate. But Earth, your people rejected us. You saw us as a threat, and so we became one. We were forced to fight, and the war began." Cole's mind whirled. He had always believed the story was simple: aliens came, attacked Earth, and humans fought back. But hearing Ziller speak like this, it made him question everything. The stories he had been told about alien invaders seemed more like propaganda now. Was it possible that the war was nothing more than a tragic misunderstanding? "But why didn't you tell us this sooner?" Cole asked, the frustration rising in his voice. "Why didn't we know? If you were trying to survive, why didn't you reach out?" Ziller's gaze hardened. "Do you think we could? You were ready to fight, just as we were. The war was inevitable, but now—" He paused, as if gathering his thoughts. "Now, there is something worse coming, something darker than we could have ever imagined. A power far beyond anything we have faced." Cole's blood ran cold. "What do you mean? What's coming?" Ziller's eyes flickered to the horizon, outside the cave, as though he could sense the storm that was brewing. The Scourgers were not the only ones who noticed Earth's potential. There are other forces far older than either of our civilizations. They have been watching us, studying us, waiting for the right moment to strike, and now that moment is near. Cole's heart skipped a beat. He had always been taught that the battle was about survival, but what Ziller was saying made it sound like something far more sinister was at play. "Who are they?" Cole asked, his voice barely a whisper. Ziller's expression darkened, his features twisting with an intensity that Cole had never seen before. "They are the elders, the ones who have shaped the galaxy's history, the ones who have kept the balance. They are the ones who have watched over our war for far too long, and now they seek to end it. They will not stop until every trace of our conflict is erased." Cole shook his head, trying to process the information. So, what do we do? How do we stop them? Ice leaned forward, his eyes piercing through the darkness. We must find the knowledge hidden on this planet, the one secret that could change the course of this war. It is the key to defeating the Elders, but it is hidden, lost, perhaps even forgotten. And we are running out of time. Cole sat back, the weight of Ziller's words sinking in. This wasn't just about survival anymore. This wasn't about Earth or the alien invaders. This was about something much larger, something that could shape the fate of entire galaxies. Ziller was right. There was a force far more powerful than either of them, the Elders, and, if they were going to survive, they had to find a way to stop them. Then we find it, Cole said, determination rising in his chest. We find that knowledge, and we end this war for good. Ziller's eyes gleamed with something between hope and fear. Then we begin. The journey ahead would not be easy. They would face unimaginable challenges, enemies that neither of them could yet comprehend. But together, they had a chance, one that could change the fate of the galaxy forever. And with every step they took, they moved closer to uncovering the truth. The final stand, the night was alive with the distant hum of the enemy ships cutting through the atmosphere. Sergeant Cole stood at the edge of the clearing, staring out at the stars that stretched endlessly above. In the distance, the glow of enemy fire illuminated the horizon, casting long, eerie shadows across the land. He knew they had no time left. The Scourgers were closing in. Their forces now aware that the alien warrior he had been protecting wasn't just a soldier, but the last hope of ending this war. Ziller, standing silently beside him, seemed to sense the danger approaching. His eyes were dim, almost resigned, but there was still a quiet fire in the mud, determination that even Cole couldn't fully comprehend. The alien had already given so much, and now he was prepared to give more. "We don't have much time, Cole," said, his voice low, steady. The words were almost unnecessary. They both knew what had to be done. Their mission was clear. They had to find the energy core, the secret weapon that Ziller's people had hidden centuries ago, one that could tip the scales of this war. It was buried deep within a long-forgotten facility, hidden by the very aliens that now hunted them. The core held the key to destroying the Scourgers, but they had no idea how to access it. Only that it was their only chance to survive. "It's not just about the war anymore," Zillar murmured, his voice soft, yet filled with a deep, almost sorrowful certainty. "It's about the galaxy. We cannot let them take what remains." Cole looked at the alien, wondering just how much more Ziller knew. How much was he hiding? How much did he already understand about the forces at play? But this wasn't the time for questions. The truth didn't matter now. Survival did. "We'll end this together." Cole's words were simple, but there was a strength in them, something Ziller seemed to feel too. The plan was set. They would move in silence, using the terrain to their advantage. Cole had gathered what little supplies they could carry, and with Ziller's guidance, they began their trek toward the facility that housed the energy core. It was a relic from a forgotten time, one that Cole never thought he would see, and Ziller never wanted to revisit. Yet, here they were, bound by fate and circumstance, pushing toward a destiny that neither could escape as they moved through the forest. The sounds of enemy ships grew louder, their shadows stretching ever closer. Cole couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched. The Scourgers were masters of stealth, always just out of reach, but never truly gone. They were patient, waiting for the right moment to strike. And Cole knew the moment was coming. Zillar stopped suddenly, holding his arm out to halt Cole's forward movement. His alien senses were sharper, and he had a way of detecting movement that Cole didn't. The hairs on the back of his neck stood up as he looked around, scanning the trees for any sign of danger. He didn't see them, but he knew they were out. There, a rustling in the brush, followed by the sound of feet crunching over leaves, sent Cole's hand instinctively reaching for his rifle. Ziller's eyes glowed faintly, his body shifting as he prepared for a fight. "We don't have time," Cole whispered urgently. "We need to keep moving." But Zillar shook his head. "They are here." And just as the words left his mouth, the first wave of scourgers emerged from the shadows, their weapons aimed at the two of them. The sudden flash of green energy from their rifles lit up the forest. And the battle began. Cole fired first, taking down one of the scourgers with a clean shot. But the rest were too quick. They moved with precision, their armor flashing with the same eerie green glow as their weapons. The fight was chaos, a blur of gunfire, alien energy blasts, and the steady, pounding rhythm of Cole's heart. As he fought for his life, Zilla moved like a force of nature, his alien strength and agility evident as he took down two more of the scourgers with lethal force. The warrior was weakened, but the fire in him hadn't died yet. Cole watched as Ziller fought with all his might, his alien body shifting and dodging with incredible speed. There was no mercy in his strike zone, the cold precision of a warrior who had seen his people destroyed and would stop at nothing to ensure the same fate didn't befall Cole. Cole, too, fought with everything he had. Each shot was carefully aimed, each movement deliberate. The enemy was relentless, but so were they. They fought side by side, the alien and the human, against an enemy that wanted them dead. Together, they were more than a soldier and a warrior. They were a force. And as long as they stood together, they had a chance. But as the battle raged on, Cole realized something terrifying. This wasn't just a fight for survival, it was a fight for the future of everything they knew. And even with their combined strength, it wasn't enough to guarantee victory. The last of the scourgers fell, but Cole's breath came in short, jagged gasps. His body was covered in sweat, his hands trembling from the intensity of the fight. He glanced over at Zillar, who, though battered, still stood tall, his eyes burning with the same fire as before. "We move now," Zillar said, his voice steady but filled with urgency. "We don't have much time." Cole nodded, though his body screamed for rest. There was no time for that now. Ate had come too far. The energy core was within their reach, and the fate of the galaxy hung in the balance. The final stand wasn't over. Not yet, but it would be soon. As they pushed forward, the weight of what lay ahead settled on Cole's shoulders. But there was one thing he knew for sure: whatever happened next, he would face it with Zillar, side by side. They weren't just fighting for survival anymore. They were fighting for the future. And this time, they would not back down. The dawn of a new alliance. The sky above had shifted from the cold dark of night to the gray light of dawn. The faint glow of the stars was swallowed by the growing light, but the landscape beneath still held its breath, as if the world itself knew something monumental was about to unfold. Sergeant Cole, drenched in sweat, moved cautiously through the dense forest toward the hidden facility. Zillar, though still visibly weakened, moved with him. Each step they took brought them closer to their goal, the final piece of their mission. They had to reach the energy core before it was too late, but the battle wasn't over yet. The enemy, an ever-present shadow, hadn't given up. Their relentless pursuit had led them to this final location, and Cole could feel the weight of their impending doom pressing down on him. There was no turning back now, no second chances. If they failed, it wouldn't just mean the end for them, it would mean the end of everything they had fought for. As they neared the facility, Zillar's voice broke the silence, low and tinged with a weary resolve. "This is where it ends." Cole's grip tightened on his weapon. He didn't respond. There was no need to. They both knew what needed to be done. The energy core The weapon that could shift the balance of the war was hidden deep inside this facility. It was a relic from Zealer's past, and it was their last hope. But it wasn't just a weapon. It was also the key to understanding what had happened to Zealer's people, to his civilization. The secrets buried within the core could not only end the war, it could change the future of both their worlds. With each step they took, the air grew colder, and the silence grew deeper. They were getting close. The entrance to the facility stood before them, dark and foreboding. The large metallic doors were cracked open just enough for them to slip inside. Inside the facility was a world of its own, cold steel walls illuminated. Only by flickering lights led them deeper into the heart of the structure. The faint hum of energy vibrated in the air. Every step echoed as though they were intruders in a forgotten world. Cole kept his rifle close, his eyes scanning every corner. The tension was unbearable. Solar, his eyes glowing faintly, led the way, his every movement purposeful. It was clear now he wasn't just guiding them to the energy core. He was guiding them to something more important, the truth. "We're almost there," Ziller said, his voice barely above a whisper. They reached a large chamber, and in the center, bathed in an eerie blue light, was the energy core. It was massive, its design unlike anything Cole had ever seen. At its core was a swirling mass of energy, a force that seemed to hum with an almost sentient power. The core pulsed with life, as if it had been waiting for them. But as they moved closer, the ground beneath them trembled, and the walls began to shake. It wasn't just the energy from the core. Something else was happening, something worse. The Elders. Ziller whispered, his voice filled with dread. "They've found us." Before Cole could react, the air crackled with energy, and the facility was flooded with blinding light. The Elders had arrived. They were here. Suddenly, the room filled with shadow-stall, imposing figures cloaked in an unsettling aura. They were not fully physical. The Elders existed in a form that defied logic, beings of pure energy and dark will. They hovered above the ground, their presence suffocating the air. "You should not have come here," one of the Elders intoned, its voice resonating in Cole's mind. "The war must end. Your species does not deserve this power." Cole's pulse quickened, but he stood firm. "We're not asking for permission. We're ending this war once and for all." The Elder's form shifted, rippling like liquid. "You cannot stop what has already begun. You are insignificant." But Ziller, despite his weakened state, stepped forward, his voice unwavering. "You are wrong. It is you who do not understand. We are not your pawns. We are not your weapons." For a moment, there was silence, as if the Elders were considering Ziller's words. Then, the dark figures converged around them, their presence now palpable, pressing in from all sides. The power in the room was overwhelming, suffocating. "You have made your choice," the Elder whispered, its voice chilling. "Now you must face the consequences." In a flash, the room erupted with energy. The Elders unleashed a storm of dark power, their energy swirling like a storm around Cole and Zillar. The air crackled. The ground shook, and the very walls of the facility began to fracture under the pressure of their power. Zillar, though weak, pushed forward. "I will not allow this to happen." With a sudden movement, Ziller extended his hand toward the energy core, his fingers brushing its surface. The core responded, pulsing with a surge of energy, sending a shockwave through the facility. The Elders recoiled, their forms flickering as they struggled to maintain control over their power. "No," the Elder hissed, but it was too late. Ziller had activated the core, and with a burst of blinding light, the energy within the room surged outward, pushing back the Elders. For a moment, everything was still. The light from the core began to fade, and as it did, the Elders seemed to disintegrate. their forms dissolving into the air like smoke in the wind. Cole watched in awe as Zillar fell to his knees, exhausted. The core had done its job. The war, the battle that had torn their worlds apart, was over. But at what cost? Zillar's eyes flickered open, a weak smile tugging at his lips. "We did it," he whispered. Cole didn't know what the future held. But in that moment, he knew one thing for certain. This was the beginning of something new. Something that neither humanity nor Zillar's people had ever dared to imagine. Together, they had changed the course of their destiny. They were no longer enemies, no longer strangers. They were allies, and as the sun began to rise outside, casting light on a new day, Cole realized that the galaxy's future had just been rewritten.